I say this. Compensatory heart failure could be seen as a stable heart failure or chronic heart failure, where the patient is what? Is stable. Decompensated when situation changes and becomes acute, because the compensatory mechanisms were not able to stabilize the heart failure. It tips the patient from that stable to unstable. So becomes decompensated. So patient will be rushed to the hospital as a result of decompensation. So decompensated heart failure is where the situation changes and becomes acute. Compensated when the patient is stable or is in a chronic phase. Decompensated when the patient becomes unstable and the situation becomes worse. It's decompensated. So you could have acute. You could say acute on chronic. In a chronic state, the patient is stable. But when the situation changes in that acute state, then we have acute on chronic. In that state, we can say that the patient, we took the patient to decompensated state. So when situation changes from stable to unstable, then becomes what? Becomes decompensated. Please, is it clear? Please, is it clear?
Yes.
Okay, so I don't know whether we touched on some of the compensatory mechanisms. Did we do that?
No, sir.
No, you will say no. So the ladies will say no. I'm not hearing from the guys. The men, where are you? Did we touch on the compensatory mechanism?
No, please.
I can't hear you guys.
No, please.
No, please.
You're following them. Okay, so let's quickly do the compensatory mechanisms. Compensatory mechanisms. Please, are you putting down something?
Yes, please.
Yes, sir.
Compensatory mechanism. When the heart is failing, what are some of the compensatory mechanisms that will try to hold the failing heart? All the time, the system, there's check and balances. That is why we have parasympathetic and what? And sympathetic. Para is checking the sympathetic. So anytime you have these imbalance, then one becomes dominant, then you'll be seeing the clinical manifestation. When we have sympathetic becoming dominant, then we'll be getting certain clinical manifestation like high BP, we're getting tachycardia. When you have para dominating, then you'll be getting what? You'll be getting the other side. You'll be getting bradycardia and co. So the system, there's always checks and balances. So compensatory mechanisms are mechanisms that tries to check or try to rectify or hold the failing heart to ensure that the heart will not die, the heart will not. So when you are in a crowd and you see somebody fainting, you see how the crowd would rush to. You'll be hearing someone say, let's do this. Someone say, let's do this. Or let's put water on him or her. Let's rush him or her to hospital. These are all compensatory just to solve the situation. So when the heart is failing, there's a compensatory mechanism that goes on in the system. What are some of the compensatory mechanisms that goes on in the system? What are they? What are
Said
some?
an increase in sympathetic activity and also the RAS system. So in the end, you would have an increase in heart rate and blood pressure.
Take your time. Let's take it one by one. Increase in what?
Sympathetic activity.
So why is increase in sympathetic activity? Why is increase in sympathy in the failing heart?
Because there's not enough cardiac output, there's not enough blood being pumped to their body. So it tries to activate the heart to do more work, thinking that that's what will help bring more blood.
Come again.
So there is decreased cardiac output, and that causes decreased perfusion to the various tissues. So the sympathetic activity is activated so that the heart can pump harder in order to bring out more blood or increase the cardiac output.
Okay, you are right. But just to add on, the heart is not able to pump, and therefore blood to the extremities will be reduced. That will lead to low perfusion. So there's sympathetic stimulation when the heart is failing, such that there will be pressure buildup. Those sympathetic will cause vasoconstriction. What you said, you are right. So sympathetic activation would also enhance release of impulses from the SA node. So SA node will be stimulated to cause release of what? Impulses. And this release of impulses will try to increase the contractility. That is one aspect. Another aspect is that the sympathetic activity will cause constriction. And that will try to increase the BP. By increasing the BP, pressure will be increased to get into the extremities, because heart failure will lead to cardiac output, low cardiac output, and it will lead to low perfusion to the extremities. Activating sympathetic would increase the BP such that there will be perfusion, increase in perfusion. Please, is that clear? Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
So, any other?
Fluid retention.
What?
Fluid retention.
Come again.
Fluid retention.
We are talking about compensatory mechanism, and we are talking about fluid retention.
Sir, please, stimulation of the RAS.
Come again.
Stimulation of the RAS.
Stimulation of the RAS activation. RAS activation. Why RAS activation? Because there's reduction of cardiac output. And note this, for normal heart, the cardiac output, 25% of the cardiac output will get into what? Will get into the kidneys. 25% of the cardiac output will get into the kidneys. And if the heart is failing, that percentage will reduce. and that would activate the rat. So there's rat activation, and because there's reduction in perfusion, the system will assume that the amount of fluid in the system is low. So let's do something to increase the fluid. That is why there'll be RAS activation. So sympathetic activation, RAS activation, as a result of low perfusion to the kidneys due to the low cardiac output as a result of the heart failing. What again?
Cardiac remodeling.
There'll be cardiac remodeling. Remodeling. There's remodeling to accumulate or accommodate the fluid, because now there'll be high residual volume. If I say residual volume, you understand. You understand residual volume? Yes or no? Yes or no? The heart is pumping. I'll be doing ejection fraction before I do the other types of heart failure that we are mentioning. Heart failure of reduced ejection fraction. Heart failure. I'll be doing that. This has to pump blood to the general circulation. So if it's not able to pump enough blood, then more will be remaining here. That is the residual volume. So there will be increase in residual volume. And this residual volume can cause remodeling, because it will put pressure on the walls of the ventricles. It will cause remodeling. So there could be remodeling as a compensatory mechanism. What again? Hurry up. What again?
The peptides.
The peptides, release of the peptides. The peptides we have other peptides, but basically we have the atrial natriuretic peptides, and we have brain natriuretic peptides. These peptides will be released as a result of this buildup of fluid. And the function of these peptides is to clear. It causes natriuresis, clear sodium and water buildup in the system. So in heart failure, there's a buildup. We said there's peripheral edema, there's a buildup. And therefore, peptides, these are compensatory mechanisms. Peptides will be released. These peptides will try to clear the fluid. I want you to see something here. I'll be asking you. See something here. Peptides will be released, and these peptides will cause natriuresis, clear fluid, clear sodium, natriuresis. The heart is feeling there's a stretch here, atrial wall, and this stretch will cause the release of atrial natriuretic peptide. Brain natriuretic peptide is also released from the stretching of the ventricular wall. There's a tension buildup within these walls, and this tension will cause the release of these peptides. So there's brain natriuretic peptide coming from the stretching of these walls. And it's called the brain natriuretic peptide. The reason why it's called brain natriuretic peptide is that the peptide was first seen in the brain. That is why we are calling it brain natriuretic peptide. But it's released from the ventricular wall. Any other Please, is it clear up to this point? Is it clear up to this point?
Yes.
Yes or
Yes.
no? So any other compensatory mechanism?
The release of endothelins.
So the release of endothelin. And why will be the release of endothelin as a compensatory mechanism? Why will it be the release of endothelin? What is the function of endothelin? What is the function of endothelin? Hurry up.
It's a vasoconstrictor.
So it's a vasoconstrictor. So endothelin will behave as a sympathetic. It does the same thing as sympathetic activity, causing a vasoconstriction. That will set up a high pressure within. So there will be a pressure setting up within this. Pressure will build up within this. So these are some of the sympathetic activity. The RAS system, the other things that we didn't mention, the RAS system would increase the ADH. The RAS system will also ensure ADH elevation. And this would also ensure retention of fluid, because the low perfusion to the kidneys will activate the RAS system. And this will also cause elevation of ADH. That will also aid in retention of fluid. What do you see here? What do you see? What do you see here? Who can tell me something here? What do you see here? What do you see about the RAS and the peptides? What do you see? Hurry up, hurry up. What do you see? Hey.
So is it that they work? They have different functions. Although they are against themselves.
Come again.
One is causing fluid buildup, and the other is clearing it from the system.
So what do you see? What do you see? Oh, hurry up, hurry up. What do you see? You said one is causing fluid buildup, one is causing fluid. So what is that? What do you see?
I say I'm not sure.
You have said it all, but why are you saying you are not sure?
The peptides oppose the RAS.
So when you allow the sympathetic activity to go on, you cause confusion. And the confusion is that now you have this retaining, we have this clearing. So this will nullify the work of this. So it's better to come in. We don't prolong the compensatory mechanism, allow the system to do this. Okay, so let's talk about, I want to take you through the ejection fraction before we talked about systolic and diastolic dysfunction. Let's talk about this. So let's talk about ejection fraction. Ejection fraction. Ejection fraction. Please, any question up to this point? It's this. Are you okay? Please, are you all okay up to this point?
Yes, he said.
Yes, sir.
Please.
Okay, so let's deal with this area. It's important that you know this. I know some of you have a knowledge about ejection fraction. Ejection fraction. So let him start by saying this and understand this, the basis. Please understand this basis. So let me start by saying that when the heart is fully and healthy heart, when an healthy heart is fully relaxed, the amount of fluid or blood that will be in each ventricle, who can tell me is approximately what? When the chambers are fully relaxed, the amount of blood that will be in each chamber is approximately
70 mils.
when the chambers are fully relaxed. Who can tell me the amount of blood that will be in it?
130 mils.
130. And this 130 is the same at end diastolic volume. End diastolic volume. If I say end diastolic volume, you understand? If I say end diastolic volume, you understand?
Yes, please.
So when I say end, after the diastole, that is the end. At the end of the diastole, the amount of blood that will be in the chamber, less than end diastolic. When the diastole is full, the amount of blood that will be in it is approximately 130 mils. We have what you call stroke volume. What is stroke volume? Hurry up. Stroke volume is what?
So for stroke volume, we are referring to the amount of blood which is ejected per each beat.
Good. So stroke volume is amount of blood ejected per each beat, and it's approximately 70 what? Mils. So you have 30 mils. We have 130 mils, and the stroke volume is 70 mils. It means that after each beat, there will be a certain amount in the heart, and that amount will be called what? That amount will be called what?
The end residual.
Is the residual what? Volume. And the residual volume is approximately what? 60 mils. And that residual volume can also be called end systolic volume. End systolic volume. Please, is it clear? Is it clear?
Yes.
At the end of the systole, the amount that will remain will be this. Please note this. So when you take this, listen, when you take the stroke volume, and you take the residual volume, and you take the end diastolic volume, you see that more than half more than half of this, more than half of the blood is ejected. This is the end diastolic volume is 130 mils. Stroke volume is what, 70. So when you compare this, it means that more than half of the blood is ejected. And therefore, in percentage, we say that more than 50%. More than 50% is ejected. Please, is it clear up to this point?
Yes, please, sir.
And therefore, for healthy hearts, the ejection, I'll be talking about the ejection fraction. Ejection fraction should be 50% and above for healthy hearts. The ejection fraction should be 50% and above. I'll be talking about ejection fraction. So now, what is ejection fraction? What is ejection fraction? Who can tell me the ejection fraction? Ejection fraction. Ejection fraction.
Sir, is the fraction of the stroke volume expressed in percentage?
It's the fraction of stroke volume expressed in percentage. So what is that? What is that expression?
Is the stroke volume over the total volume?
The stroke volume over the total volume times what? Times 100. So ejection fraction is the percentage of stroke volume. Ejection fraction is the percentage of the stroke volume, and it's expressed as the stroke volume. Is expressed as the stroke volume. The total volume here becomes the end diastolic volume. The total volume becomes the end diastolic volume. So the stroke volume over the end diastolic volume times 100. That becomes the ejection rate fraction. That becomes the ejection fraction. Is it clear up to this point? Please.
Yes, please.
Is it clear? So can I say this? If you are confused, tell me, can I say this? Can I say this? The stroke volume is equal to end diastolic volume minus end systolic volume. Can I say this? Can I say this?
Yeah.
Yes, PC.
Yes, please.
Come again.
Yes, PC.
And therefore, ejection fraction will be expressed as end diastolic volume minus end systolic volume over end diastolic volume times 100. Is it clear?
please.
So you appreciate this. You appreciate.
Yes, please.
Okay, so now, what do you use to check for ejection fraction? What do you use to? Which? So echo, we use echo. We use echo, and the echo will tell you. Echo will tell you. Echo will tell you this. Echo will tell you. Echo will tell you. So you can do echo. So we use echo. We use echo to check the ejection fraction. So you can do ejection fraction 2. You can do echo to check your ejection fraction. So let's see for normal individual. Let's see the ejection fraction. So we keep on saying certain things. These are the bases. Ejection fraction for normal individual. We said that the stroke volume is 70. The end diastolic volume is 130. Times what? Times 100. So can you do this calculation for me?
%53.8%.
Come again.
That is 53.8%.
There is 53.8, which is 54. So at times, this is 54%. At times, certain references will say that for healthy individual, your ejection fraction should be above 54. So 54 and above. But I will say that for healthy individual, listen to me, for healthy individual, your ejection fraction should be above 50%. Because the stroke volume is 70, which is above 50%. Should be above 50%. But when you do the calculation, it's 54. So you say that for healthy individual, it should be this. It should be 54 and above. Please, is it clear?
Yes, please.
Now I am going to talk about this. So I'm saying we use echo to check for ejection fraction. We use echo to check for ejection fraction. We use echo. So now I'm going to do the dysfunctioning. Heart failure patient will come with dysfunctioning. Some of you are telling me it's a type of heart failure. So we talk about dysfunctioning. So now, dysfunctioning. So when you talk about dysfunctioning, we have for the heart, we have systolic. We have systolic and we have diastolic. And this systolic talks about the contraction. And this talks about relaxation. So when we have issues with contractility, means that there's a problem about systolic. And if you have a problem about the systolic, we said we have systolic dysfunctioning. Systolic dysfunctioning. And if we have a problem about relaxation, then we say that we have diastolic dysfunction. Please, is that clear? So for any heart failure, for any, whether it's left-sided, whether it's right-sided, whether it's biventricular, it will be as a result of either we have systolic dysfunction or diastolic dysfunction. We have contractility problem, or we have what? Diastolic relaxation problem. Please, is it clear?
Yes, please.
And therefore, at the ward, a doctor will not be telling you that, listen, at the ward, a doctor will not be telling you that this heart failure is as a result of systolic dysfunction or diastolic dysfunction. And they'll be using these terms. They'll be using those terms. So they'll be using these terms. Heart failure with preserved ejection fraction. And 2, heart failure with reduced ejection fraction. So heart failure with preserved ejection fraction and heart failure with reduced ejection fraction. So when you have these heart failure with preserved ejection, these are the things that you'll be saying. And this will point to either we have systolic dysfunction or diastolic dysfunction. So let's take the number 1, heart failure with preserved ejection fraction. When you talk about preserved ejection fraction, it means that the contraction is okay. There's no problem about the contraction. That is why we have this preserved ejection fraction. So heart failure with preserved ejection fraction means that the problem is not due to the systolic. The problem is due to what? Diastolic. There's a diastolic dysfunction. Please, is it clear?
Yes, please.
So the second one, heart failure with reduced ejection fraction. What does it mean? When you say heart failure with reduced ejection fraction, what does it mean? Hurry up. What does it mean when you say heart failure with reduced ejection fraction?
Let me contraction.
Can you amplify your voice a bit?
Can you hear me?
I hear you. Hello.
Please, can Hello.
Yeah, I can now hear you.
Yes, please. And please, this one has the problem with the contraction.
So ejection fraction. Heart failure with reduced ejection fraction means what?
It means
systolic dysfunction.
There's systolic dysfunction. So these 2 terms will tell you whether the heart failure, if it's biventricular, if it's left-sided, if it's right-sided, what is causing the dysfunction? What is causing the heart failure? Is it systolic dysfunction or is it diastolic? So heart failure of preserved ejection fraction, heart failure of reduced ejection fraction. Why are we learning this? Why do you have to know? Who can tell me? Why do you have to know whether it's systolic dysfunction or diastolic dysfunction? At the end of the day, it's heart failure. Why do you have to know? Why do you have to know? Who can tell me? Why do you have to know whether it's, at the end of the day, it's heart failure? Why do you have to know whether it's systolic or whether it's diastolic? Anybody? Am I muted? Can you hear me?
Yes, please, we can.
So I can't hear you. Let me hear you. Why do you have to know whether it's diastolic or systolic dysfunction causing the heart failure?
Please, because of the management involved.
Because of what?
The management involved.
So tell me. Because of the management. So tell me.
So for heart failure with systolic dysfunction, we have to keep medications which will help improve the contractility of the heart. And for those with systolic dysfunction, we have to give medications to help the heart to relax in order to flow more with blood. And those with diastolic dysfunction, we have to give medications that would increase the contractility.
So tell me. Now tell me. Tell me, if it's preserved ejection fraction, which medication can we give? If it's reduced ejection fraction, which medication do we give? So, as you rightly said, because of certain medication, because if it's diastolic and you give certain medication, it could worsen the case. If it's systolic and you give certain medication, it could worsen the situation. So it's because of medication treatment. Because we want to avoid certain medication, that is why we have to know whether when you are giving certain medication, then you have to know whether it's reduced ejection fraction or preserved, hopefully have preserved ejection fraction. Okay, so assuming I am giving calcium channel blockers, assuming I'm giving nifedipine to heart failure patients, what should be your concern? What should be your concern?
They exert some calcium channel blocking activity on the heart.
When you talk, there's some breaks. I can't.
For
You said there's breaks.
For calcium channel blockers like they exert some activity on the heart, calcium channel blocking activity on the heart. And for heart failure with reduced ejection fraction, where the contraction of the heart is not, where the heart is not contracting, giving calcium channel blockers would worsen the the ejection fraction or worsen the person's condition.
Who heard my voice? Because who heard him?
I heard you.
Okay, so can you re-echo what he said?
What he said was that the calcium channel blockers have an effect on the heart by reducing contraction. So if you are given it in a case where the patient has reduced ejection fraction, where there's already an issue with systolic dysfunction, the calcium channel blocker will even go and worsen it.
So class, you heard him. You heard him. And the lady who echoed the whole thing. Is it clear what he said? Is it clear?
Yes, please.
Is it clear? So if a patient comes with heart failure of reduced ejection fraction, will you give nifedipine? Will you give nifedipine, yes or no? And why?
No, please.
Why? Explain to me.
Because the calcium channel blocker will further reduce the contractility of the heart. And there's already systolic dysfunction, so this will worsen that.
So if a patient comes with reduced ejection fraction, will you give amlodipine?
Yes, please.
Why will you give amlodipine with reduced ejection fraction? Why will you give amlodipine?
Because amlodipine does not exert any calcium channel blocking activity on the heart muscle.
You said amlodipine does not what? Amlodipine does what?
Does not exert considerable calcium channel blocking activity on the heart.
I have issue with your line.
He said it does not exert favorable calcium channel blocking activity on the heart.
What does it mean? What does it mean?
Amlodipine mainly works on the blood vessels, so it doesn't have an effect on the myocardial cells.
So what he said, talking about what he said, he's saying a favorable what? He said what? Favorable what?
He didn't say favorable, he just said it does not exert any action, blocking action on the heart.
Okay, so that is that. So please note this. Note this. Note if it's reduced ejection fraction, what is the dysfunctioning? So when you are considering any medication, consider medication, whether it will help or it will not. So note that. So note that. Any question?
Sir, please, can you come again about amlodipine?
It's not, you heard them. So who said what they said? They were right. So who please come again about amlodipine. Who was talking about amlodipine? When I was asking about amlodipine. Class, can you hear me?
Yes, please.
Who was talking about amlodipine? Please say it again.
So in giving amlodipine, it doesn't have considerable calcium channel blocking activity on the heart. It can be given safely in heart failure with ejection fraction. It would prevent the heart from contracting properly.
So we have amlodipine, and we say that amlodipine will not act on the heart. Amlodipine will act at the periphery. And therefore, because it will not have effect, last time I don't know whether it's your class, amlodipine can be used whether it's preserved or reduced ejection fraction because it will not have effect on the myocardium. To not have effect on the myocardium. Please, is it clear? The lady who said amlodipine again.
Yes, teacher.
Roots. In discussion. Somebody was saying Philippine, then. We are talking about amlodipine. You're not talking about Philippine. Please, any question? Any question?
No, please.
Okay, so if you don't have any question, I'm ending here. We'll continue tomorrow. I will not do Friday. And tomorrow I will start with the medication. I'll start with the medication. I will not do Friday, but I'm going to. So I will do, I've done heart failure with the face-to-face. I'm going to start a new topic. So I want you to be at par. So tomorrow we are going to start the medication. Heart failure. How do you manage heart failure patients? We're going to start with the medication. Okay, so good night. Last time I do 3 hours, you were complaining. So when I do 2 hours, then I'll stop. Okay, so I'll see you tomorrow. God willing. Good night.
Good night.
Okay.
Right.